Howdy, it's Captain Crispy here, and today I'm going to talk about Bitcoin, Litecoin, gold and silver, and the future, and how to protect yourself from the coming currency crisis. But first I want to talk a little bit about how I got there and how I came to my conclusions. I started looking into how to make money in the stock market. I saw a lot of people made a lot of money, but then I started wondering, well, what about the people who don't make so much money? You hear about the glory stories, but a lot of people kind of, bet the farm on the stock market. They do irresponsible things. They don't really pay attention to the market. And what I understood is people were doing things that didn't make sense in the stock market, and they were losing. So I started to study the principles of the stock market. Now, I will say this about the stock market. Right now, it's reaching an all-time high. According to the mainstream media, you should buy and get in on this roller coaster. Seriously, what are you doing? It's a roller coaster of money. You should get in. So you got to know when to buy at lows, when to buy at highs, which lows you should be buying, and when to sell. Because getting in too high and thinking that it's going to rise, you can really lose a lot of money. And so it's more of like a casino type atmosphere. So I never really invested in the stock market. I wanted to see what principles drive the stock market, what principles drive the markets, period, and how am I supposed to position myself in order to make money off of that. Now, this is coming from purely a speculation type investment perspective, but a lot of people have made money doing this, and I thought maybe it could be a second income, so I was looking into it. But then as I'm looking into it, they start the quantitative easing. Well, one thing I noticed about quantitative easing is the more money they so-called print, the higher the stock market goes. Whenever they say, hey, we're going to taper, or we're going to pull back, the stock market drops a little bit. It seems as if they're scared of a taper. So there's a direct correlation between the stocks and the Fed printing money. We hear about the recovery. Well, Main Street's not really in a recovery. We're kind of, we're kind of just moving along, while Wall Street and the stock market has been moving up and up and up. So we can see how that benefits them. But, we pay consequences for that. The value of stocks really, sometimes they're pegged to the dollar, and as the dollar inflates, the prices get inflated. There's a whole mess of, not really knowing what's going on there. It gets a little diluted. A lot of people don't understand that there's also a lot more dollars circulating outside of the U.S. than inside of the U.S. A lot of the dollars that exist aren't even in paper form. They're just digits on a computer. Quantitative easing, pretty much does that. But the cash that's being printed is really being hoarded by the banks on Wall Street until the interest rates rise. And when that happens, the printed money will be lent out by the banks, and inflation should incur. We've seen them hold back the velocity of money and stave off inflation pretty well, but they don't have a very good long-term track record. Even without the quantitative easing program, the dollar has lost over 90% of its purchasing power. I like to show people, that picture in crystals when you go, and crystals used to be 5 cents. Well, now they're well over 50 cents a crystal, and that shows you the amount. And it didn't get more expensive to make crystal burgers. The dollar just buys less, and that's because a little bit of inflation is a good thing, according to Keynesian economics. Over the long haul, the people who lose are the people who save up, the savers, the people who want to invest, and don't understand the system, the people who are ignorant of the system. And right now I see that stocks are in a bubble. I mean, they're at all-time highs, and it's because of the quantitative printing program. And as soon as they talk about tapering, they drop. So this tool of quantitative easing is not going to work forever, and the stocks are going to drop. And it's going to be like dropping a big brick into a pool of water. The stock markets are going to drop, but the water represents the assets, the hard, tangible assets that have been manipulated down so that other assets can rise, or other stocks can rise. From what my analysis has been based on fundamentals, And if you listen to other market experts, they'll tell you the same thing. That's why there's a lot of gold bugs out there right now. So we can predict the future, just by paying attention to the history of fiat money and the history of bubbles, particularly, and be in the right place at the right time to soften the blow of the nasty effects of the currency crisis that will play out. And on top of this, you can walk away with a lot more money than you came into it with if you play your cards right. Now let's switch into Litecoin and Bitcoin. Now, I didn't speculate in the stock markets, but it didn't cost a whole lot to speculate in Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin was $45 a few months ago, I bought one just to see what would happen. Right now the price of Bitcoin is around $1,200 per Bitcoin. Well, you could say that I've made quite a bit of money. But what I did is I cashed out. I cashed out my Bitcoin. I bought my wife some clothes because she deserves it. And I bought some silver. And then I reinvested some more. What did I reinvest in? Well, I reinvested in some other cryptocurrencies, particularly Litecoin, which I had some Litecoins. After Bitcoin, went up to about $1,000, Litecoin actually had an even more dramatic upturn. So I made some money off of Litecoins too. Now I'm going to say this about cryptocurrencies. I do not think that Litecoin or Bitcoin or Feathercoin are actually a good replacement for the Federal Reserve dollar. Now I do like them to be, I believe in a competition in currencies. I believe there is a place for Bitcoin and Litecoin and some of these other cryptocurrencies. I actually recently invested in another smaller cryptocurrency, but I haven't lost anything. I've cashed out more than what I put into it. I don't look to lose any money, but I believe that it could be in a speculative bubble. A lot of people are putting money into these cryptocurrencies not because of they're scared of fiat money. It's actually because if you're scared of fiat money going to zero, well, guess what? Bitcoin and Litecoin have a very, very good probability of going to zero. So if you think that Bitcoin and Litecoin are really a safe haven for your money, I'm sorry, you're wrong. If you think it's a good replacement for cash, you're wrong, because cash is completely anonymous. With the blockchain, your transaction can be traced back if it needed to be. So you really knock out the anonymity in these currencies too. Not to mention the amount of time it takes to synchronize with the blockchain if you've never started before. Consumers aren't going to want it for that reason. Consumers are also not going to want to have to learn how to use all of this stuff. Now, of course, there can come along a company who interfaces for people to do these things for them, but it still takes quite a bit of time to confirm a transaction right now in these cryptocurrencies. So if Subway is taking Bitcoin, like some of them are, your transaction hasn't really even gone through until after you've eaten your sandwich. So there is some interest in decentralizing a currency that's not controlled by the Fed. But there's also a lot of interest in giving consumers what they want. I think a lot of people would put up with that to get away from the Fed, but there's just not enough education on the Federal Reserve to make people want that over an instant transaction or a completely anonymous transaction with cash. That being said, you can make money with these cryptocurrencies because there's a lot of speculation going on, just like the stock market. But if you don't have just a little bit of money to burn, don't get involved. You should probably have something a little more tangible than these very volatile currencies. I think that it is a tool. You don't want to get caught up in something that people are going to eventually dump, or something that has that type of volatility. And it really is just as bad as the stock market casino. The price of Bitcoin has crashed back down to zero before. It happened, I think it was a couple of years ago. It was a flash crash, but it happened, and it could probably happen again. And I'm not even going to go into the CIA connections, and if you really want to know more about cryptocurrencies, go read the Fed paper. The Fed banker, one of the Fed bankers actually wrote themselves. It's actually very accurate. Now, I can tell you a lot of different reasons to buy silver, just like the rest of them, but I like to keep it to two simple principles. And one is that the world's economy is about to change again. It has several times in the past, and we should be prepared for what's going to happen this time. And a lot of people are not prepared for what's going to happen. But silver and gold have been used as money throughout all of history. Sometimes they get replaced by these fractional reserve fiat paper money scams that usually burn down. And when they do, they look for other currencies to fall back on, and a lot of times it's been gold and silver. So it's always had that role as money. Right now, gold and silver don't really play much of a role in money, especially not silver. Right now, you don't really use silver for money for anything, but it used to be used as money everywhere. And I also like to buy copper for diversity. Silver and gold are very rare. And if we get back to a commodity-backed currency, or just trading metals as barter, or as money, period, copper is going to have a huge value because of the amount of copper that exists. Yeah, it may not go to the moon, as far as value goes, but it has utility. If you actually had, copper during a currency crisis, you could mint those copper coins and give the people a currency and start a whole new economy. So copper has an instrumental type value to it. So I buy a little bit of copper too, but silver is really where I'd like to keep my money at. Other than having gold and silver, if you don't know how to grow your own food and you don't know how to clean your water, these things are essential for living. You're not going to be as prepared as you need to be, because things are going to get bad economically. Now, how bad are they going to get? I don't know, and I don't think that page has been written in stone yet. But you want to be prepared. The two main things you're going to need to worry about are your food and your water. Be sure you can take care of these things before you start investing in precious metals, commodities, Bitcoin, Litecoin, because you can have a whole bunch of money, but if it gets really bad, you can't eat money. You can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. You're going to need clean water. You're going to need food. Now, how long is the currency crisis going to last? I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how bad it's going to be. But I know that I'm prepared. I have food stored away, seeds stored away. I'm ready to use those seeds and regenerate food and clean water from anywhere. I'm ready to do that. So I've taken care of those essential needs just in case. And let's hope that those things don't happen, that it doesn't get that bad. Because if it does, and the people who aren't prepared are going to be what we call zombies. Don't be a zombie. Let's also hope that this doesn't turn into a constitutional crisis. We're actually going through a constitutional crisis right now. There was a blitz on for our freedoms. You heard they just enacted the nuclear option, which took the filibuster power away from the minority, which was a system of checks and balances. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, the people lose and the politicians win when that kind of things happen. All they have to do is just go up there and show their butt and, cry about it, and they get to change the rules, illegally change the rules, so that they can get their way. The minority party could not get away with that. I'm just going to say that right now. But I'm going to leave you with a quote from Ron Paul. A system of capitalism presumes sound money, not fiat money manipulated by a central bank. Capitalism cherishes voluntary contracts and interest rates that are determined by savings, not credit creation by a central bank. Guys, once you see what is happening, you can prepare to deal with it. Until then, listen in. Peace.